However, those who are close to me do believe that. At 91, Shirley Maclaine has experienced more life than most individuals, both off-screen and on-screen. The Oscar-winning actor, best-selling author, spiritual person, and truth-teller who never feels guilty about speaking the truth. After spending nearly 80 years away from Hollywood, Maclaine looks back with remarkable clarity, brutal candor, and a dash of well-earned sourness. In a rare unedited interview, she finally opened up about 7 men in the industry who irritated her. These actors had an impact, and it wasn't a positive one, whether it was through outright cruelty, a large ego, or a lot of disdain. From dubious power plays to startling behind-the-scenes behavior, Maclaine reveals the truth like only an old-school celebrity can. She is also criticizing others. Martin, Dr. Dean. Most of the time, I showed up drunk, Maclaine sighed. Her voice was a mixture of unresolved melancholy and nostalgia for the past. He was also emotionless and icy when he wasn't intoxicated. All you'd get is that smug lounge-act smile as you wait for a scene to unfold or a link to appear. At Rat Pack gatherings, that might have worked, but not when they were being videotaped. Despite Dean Martin's unmistakable charisma and old-school charm, Maclaine recalled that working with Martin was like playing next to a sleepwalker. His speech would seem robotically fluid, akin to a vocalist repeatedly reciting the same phrases. She claimed that she was upset over more than just the lack of preparation. It was the mental detachment and the absence of presence. Acting involves a give and take. You anticipate that the other person will catch the ball and toss it back when you toss it. It seemed as though the ball had just fallen to the ground with Dean, she remarked. The contrast was obvious because the actress was known for being intense and emotionally expressive. When I act, I live in the present, Maclaine stated. I'm trying to find the truth in every scene, and when your scene partner is basically coasting on charm, it leaves you feeling like you're acting into a vacuum. She concurred that deeper issues, such as bereavement, weariness, or even the conviction that acting was never truly Martin's calling, might have contributed to his lack of interest. He was a huge music lover. He was a huge golf fan. She claimed he really enjoyed spending time with his friends. She acknowledged that Martin occasionally caught everyone off guard with a well-timed look or an unexpected tenderness in a line reading. However, I doubt that he ever had a passion for acting. He did it because it was simple and he had to. However, dedication isn't usually sparked by things that are too simple. However, those were uncommon and unpredictable periods. It was like waiting for lightning to strike, she remarked. Most of the time, the clouds simply passed over. Maclaine acknowledged that there was a certain mystery about Martin. He has an intangible quality. She claimed that people enjoyed watching him, even while he was lying. That's the frustrating part, she murmured, her eyes softening. He had so much more potential. I think a part of me wanted to wake him up, not for the show but for the person inside because I knew he was there and didn't want to come out. Quinn, John Anthony. Her face tightened as though recalling how exhausted she was, and she recalled that he wore a particular type of macho armor that rapidly grew old. Maclaine wasn't scared to express her opinions, even if a man's swagger concealed his nervousness or lack of self-control. Anthony Quinn, she claimed, was that type of person, big, boisterous, and arrogant about his own grandeur. He entered the set as though everyone would benefit from his presence. Quinn was quite impolite to Maclaine and the majority of the other actors and crew, according to Maclaine. He hardly ever followed instructions. She claimed that he appeared to have faith only in his own authority. He would courteously nod when directors handed him notes. Then he would do what he desired. The only thing that was felt was dominance, not cooperation. In particular, the rehearsals were a pain. He frequently interrupted her in the middle of a scene, talked over her, or abruptly switched roles, Maclaine recalled. He didn't try to hide the fact that he wasn't fair to women. No one would notice that it wasn't very profound if he hurried through a show, he reasoned. She clarified that it was more than just sexism. They had the right to do so. His actions were all a show for the director, the employees, and his own self-esteem. She claimed to have learned a lot about male privilege from a moment on a set in the 1960s. In a crucial emotional passage where her character was meant to confront his with a silent, simmering intensity, Quinn opted to be loud and dramatic. Rather, he spoke louder, occupied space, and shoved her into the picture. I asked the director if we could recalibrate the dynamic, just give the scene a little more intimacy and balance, she stated to me. Laughing, Quinn reassured her, "Don't worry, sweetheart. I'll carry the scene." I remember thinking, you're not carrying anything but your ego. Although he was brilliant and had a fascinating on-screen character, Maclaine found working with him to be more exhausting than motivating. He could fill a screen with his charisma, but that is not the same as sharing it. He didn't really share any scenes with you either. He remained there. With time, she developed the ability to defend herself. You must be around men like that because they will crush you if you don't. I thus learned to push back for the sake of the integrity of the work as well as for myself. If you're always struggling for basic respect, you can't create true art. She was aware of the underlying bravado. I believe he was terrified of being vulnerable. Worried that he wouldn't be sufficient if he relaxed. He overcompensated, which may have been the true tragedy. He never trusted anyone to simply be human, not because he was a tough guy. Mitchum, Robert. Bob Mitchum had an air of menace about him. Yes, that voice that sounds like gravel and whiskey, and that sluggish smolder. You couldn't ignore his presence, Maclaine agreed. However, many are unaware of his potential for meanness. She did so with a disclaimer, or even a caution, despite her genuine admiration for Mitchum's abilities. She claimed that despite his charisma on television, his enthusiasm on set was typically damaging. There was this constant undercurrent of resentment with Bob, she said. He walked around like the world had wronged him and that every stage moment was beneath him. It seemed as though he believed that the company owed him submission rather than just respect. And his lack of curiosity would penalize everyone when he failed to understand. Working with him was like navigating a minefield of emotions for Maclaine. In each scene, hatred and disinterest were in conflict. He would interrupt you with a smirk, an insult, or simply not listening when you attempted to say or do something sincere or personally relevant. To feel big, he made everyone else feel small. Other than to ask why a scene was required or to make a caustic remark, he didn't speak anything. If the director provided notes, Bob would roll his eyes. If the script asked him to be candid and open, he would pretend it was a joke. Additionally, if another character had a significant moment, he would typically downplay it. According to Maclaine, the environment paralyzed people's minds, particularly those who were less prepared or experienced to defend themselves. It felt heavy each time he entered a room. It wasn't really about fear, she explained. The tension would increase, the temperature would drop, and all the positive energy that had been increasing would vanish, and there was a sense of dread. Mitchum never had bad days, she did not say. Everybody remembered why he was a hero in the first place because of his brilliant moments. When he was interested, he could be incredibly appealing. No one else was like him when he put on an emotional show. However, since those instances were infrequent, they appeared to be accidents. Nevertheless, Maclaine was somewhat sympathetic. He came from a cruel time in history. It was forbidden for men like Bob to be tender, to seek assistance, or to express suffering. As a result, they drank, swung, and carried this bitter armor. He must have been quite miserable. The sad thing is that he never allowed himself to recover. She stopped and said, "Talent doesn't excuse behavior, but it does make you mourn the loss more acutely because you see what could have been, what he could have been if he just let himself be vulnerable." "I never trusted Frank," Maclaine remarked without doubt or regret, quoting Sinatra. "He could definitely be charming, but only if you followed his instructions. It was charming under certain circumstances. If you weren't useful to him at that moment, you didn't exist," she replied. There was a complex undertone of amazement, annoyance, and disappointment in her voice. She had no doubts about Sinatra's beauty. Not one individual. She refused to make it into a tale, though. "He had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room," she said. "They wouldn't see you the following day. Whether you were willing to follow his rules and what he desired from you were the determining factors. That type of emotional shock was not only exhausting but also detrimental to Maclaine, who valued integrity and collaboration as an artist. She recalled a particularly tense shoot with Sinatra, which seemed to be on the verge of collapse. He stormed off set more than once, she was telling me. When things didn't go his way, he simply left. Anything from a line reading to the lighting to a filming delay could be the cause. Not from co-stars or directors, and most definitely not from a woman, the man disliked being told what to do. Maclaine was more impressed by Sinatra's people's acceptance of his instability than by his own instability. All about him were hangers-on, directors, and aides whose sole purpose was to prevent him from feeling uncomfortable. For Frank, they would hurry to make adjustments. He was so important that we felt like we were just here to follow him around. That mismatch wasn't limited to the workplace. It was about them, too. There was no actual means to communicate with him. The way power operates filtered everything. He believed that power was a privilege rather than a responsibility. After living that way for too long, people cease perceiving other people. They see only obstacles or tools. Nevertheless, Maclaine acknowledged Sinatra's talent and cultural impact. He had a way of stopping you in your tracks with his music and words. That actually did occur. However, the tense environment that accompanied that genius made everyone feel as though they had to tread carefully. Both the work and the individuals who performed it suffered as a result. She made no effort to conceal the fact that Sinatra had admirers. He was admired and obeyed by others, and he paid them when it benefited him. But God bless you if you resisted. He would make sure you understood your place if you attempted to treat him like a friend as a woman. Maclaine drew a breath slowly and deliberately. I've dealt with challenging individuals in the past, and I even held some of them in high regard. Frank, though? Working with him is not something I miss at all. No matter how much you admire their abilities, they were detrimental to you and everyone else. Beatty Warren. This one hurts, she said to him in a softer-than-normal voice that was tinged with what sounded like sadness. Warren had made a pledge without hesitation, but he was a pain in the ass. Compared to most individuals, Shirley Maclaine found it more difficult to recall working with Warren Beatty. They were buddies and even admired one another in their early years. She genuinely believed in his potential for a while, both as an actor and as a creative force in the industry. According to her, he was electric at first. Sharp, ambitious, undeniably talented, as the saying goes. It was evident in flashes, the way he framed a situation, and his timing and narrative instincts. However, without humility, skill can become a negative trait. It just happened that way with Beatty, too, she added. Maclaine was honest about the experience of working with him. He was unable to share the limelight. It had to revolve around him. Conversation, camera angles, and scripts. Like gravity drawing everything toward the sun, he would direct the moment back to himself while you were in the middle of a statement or idea. The sun, however, burnt too bright and too quickly in this instance. Her tone of displeasure went beyond wrath or self-importance. It was more than that. She had witnessed his ability to perform and how his pride caused it to sag. Being self-assured is perfectly okay, but Warren went too far and left no place for others. Their beliefs became a hindrance, and cooperating became a means of controlling others. You could never tell if he was waiting to talk or if he was actually listening. She recalled instances on the set where arguments over artistic decisions descended into gunfights. He needed to win no matter what. His notion was the most important factor, not the greatest one. He would challenge the director, defy blocking, and make last-minute changes to scenes. You were the issue if you disagreed with him. Even when he was only conversing with someone, Beatty's urge to be in control persisted. Even when no one was around, it seemed like he was acting. She never downplayed his intelligence, though. In a quiet voice, she remarked, he was brilliant and broken. That's the reason it was so depressing. Even if you wanted to support him and think he could overcome himself, he never succeeded. Or perhaps he was unable to. When asked, Maclaine immediately indicated she would work with him again. Not even for the world's greatest script. It's not necessary to repeat some lessons. You can respect someone's gifts while avoiding their mayhem. After a moment of hesitation, she continued, I wanted him to be the man his potential promised. However, possibility isn't always what it looks like. A promise broken. God complex. That's what he had, Maclaine stated sternly. She was referring to a movie star who was renowned for his rough look and serious demeanor, making him one of Hollywood's most widely recognized leading males. It's accurate to say, he thought he was Moses, even when the cameras stopped rolling. Maclaine compared working with him to entering a church where there was just one speaker. He took every line, pause, and block very seriously, she continued. But not in a way that made you feel welcome. The goal was to elevate himself, not to elevate the content. She claimed that he was humorous and patronizing, particularly when others attempted to add warmth or naturalness to a situation. With his weight and pride, he would crush any attempt to add something human and light to the setting. What was strong on video frequently came across as rigid in real life. It was like attempting to dance with a statue. The man never met a mirror he didn't love, she remarked, grinning wryly. And not simply in a bodily sense. He cherished the feelings that his morals gave him. According to Maclaine, recommendations were frequently treated with a patronizing nod or a lengthy tirade criticizing the scene, the film, or the theater itself, making true collaboration impossible. He spoke like he was giving a message from God, Maclaine remarked. She said, he'd walk like he was coming down from Mount Sinai even when we were just having a simple conversation between two people. She pointed out that his righteousness went beyond the set, which made it worse. Acting wasn't the only thing involved. It was everything, the way the crew spoke to him, the position of his chair, the type of water in his trailer, and if something was lacking, he interpreted it as a personal insult to the sacredness of his presence. Working with him was extremely frustrating for Maclaine, despite his prominence and the subsequent critical accolades. No playfulness, curiosity, or give were present. Listening, responding, and being taken aback are all parts of acting. He seemed to already know what he wanted to do, though. All you had to do was follow his decisions. Nevertheless, she acknowledged that his actions affected those who witnessed them. There's something to be said for conviction and certainty, she stated. He possessed a great deal of that, yet it prevented them from truly bonding. Instead of acting with you, he acted at you. She shook her head when asked if they had ever experienced a breakthrough. Not at all. Maybe he didn't see me. Not at all. He never saw someone who was the same as him, but he did see a line mate, a co-star, and possibly even a rival. After pausing for a moment, he said, great actor, terrible team player. Something has changed. Steve McQueen. Steve seemed cool to me. Maclaine's voice was hollow when she spoke, too cool for connection. Steve McQueen, a man with a motorcycle, a squint, and an air of danger that translated naturally to the screen, was viewed by the world as the epitome of a renegade. However, his easy coolness had a price for his coworker Maclaine. Despite his manner and edge, he lacked emotional depth. Although she appreciated his accuracy and presence, she always sought out a deeper quality in their scenes, something genuine, sensitive, and human. He didn't say anything. He remained silent. And it was sliced and cold when he did. I don't believe he ever listened. It's not how you want your scene partner to behave. No one was interested, and no one was prepared to give or take. Stone was all that was present. Steve's emotional detachment seemed deliberate to her. He controlled the amount of himself he allowed others to see, and the response was little. Every action and every phrase seemed prearranged. You may enjoy its level of control. Yes, I did, but establishing a genuine connection was challenging. She compared it to dancing with a locked door. You'd step in, open yourself up, offer a moment, and there would be nothing back. No glimmer of emotion, surprise, or recognition. Only that indestructible silence remained. It gave you the impression that you were performing alone in the scene, despite the fact that it looked fantastic on camera. But Maclaine didn't doubt his appeal. He was exciting to watch because he had an inner rhythm and a natural camera sense. No matter how many people were in the frame, he seemed to be performing a solo since that beat excluded everyone else. Offset, she recalled moments when the distance remained wide. He wasn't mean, he was just hard to reach, she continued. He would only respond with a single word or a nod when you attempted to speak to him in between takes. He didn't waste time chatting up people, getting to know them, or engaging in unpleasant or untidy activities. Everything came down to power. The thing that baffled her the most was how someone with such a rugged face could affect people so strongly. That's the mystery of Steve McQueen, she replied. He barely let anyone in. Nevertheless, many believed they knew him. Would I do business with him again? Do you mean professionally? Maclaine inquired. Yes, because he delivered. With a wry smile, she continued, but I'd rather act with someone who meets you halfway and wants to build something together, not just protect their own space. He was cool, no doubt about it, but when you want heat, cool turns cold really quickly.